not just explaining the world, but changing it. You're listening to WBPU LP St. Petersburg.
Hi, I am Manuel Valera from Cuba via New York, and when I need a jazz fix, I check out the Jazz Zone, hosted by Tien Providence, heard right here on RadioRegion.com.
Soy Khalifa, as Dexter Gordon once called it. That's the name of it, Soy Khalifa. That was Nick Hampton and Corey Weed getting together. An album called Horns Locked and Soy Khalifa. We started off with Marshall Gilks from his album. The album was called Life Songs. And we heard the track. Let's pull up the playlist here. I try to remember things out of my head here. Chorus Tune, yes. Life Songs. Hope you did enjoy that lovely little set that we had there. Let's see what we're going to pull up here for you. Should get into some vocals, but we'll get to that in a bit. This is Eric Alexander from his last album, which is released on the Cellulite label. It was called Chicago to New York. No, this one's Conceptions, yes. Let's go Hitting the Jug. Eric Alexander, Hitting the Jug.
you out there in cyberspace and radio land. This is Tien Charles from Trinidad. I'm urging you to get into the mix of the Jazz Zone, hosted by Tien Providence, every Thursday and Friday, right here on RadioRegion.com.
Sammy and Billy would meet in Chinatown. A short train ride, but a million miles from their worlds of ups and downs. For one day each week in a one-room flat, they lived in a different time. A room with no past, no future, where the two can't leave it all behind. They danced a slow dance as the sun sank down. Tuesdays in Chinatown. Sammy would tell her of his 6 days of in-between, while Billy sat and listened to his stories patiently. They could speak of dreams confidentially, whisper things they shouldn't dare. No words were forbidden in their secret world. At the top of the stairs, they danced a slow dance as the sun sank down. Tuesdays in Chinatown. Holidays and birthdays and times to be shared, never celebrated together, only wish you were there. Snapshots of a lifetime of a love made just for two, for now turns into forever, for now we'll have to do. They make memories from the streets below, with the smell of the sound. Tuesdays in Chinatown. Chinatown. come and gone, and they've missed out on much. But their secret love goes on. They still long for Tuesday's touch. Was it sacrifice or just their selfish ways? Where year after year they could be there and make sense of their lives on those precious days. And our regrets are few, though we had to slip around. Tuesdays in Chinatown. Tuesdays in Chinatown. Chinatown, my Chinatown. Chinatown, my Chinatown. Tuesdays in Chinatown. Tuesdays in Chinatown.
Man Andy Bay from his Tuesday in Chinatown album. We heard the title track. And before that, we heard from Eric Alexander. From his Conceptions album, we heard Hitting the Jug. Let's continue with the vocals, bringing the sounds of the wonderful Miss Roberta Flack from her First Take album. This is Compared to What?